Okay.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks, Billy. All right. Dave Kernan, go ahead. You're first. Dave is from Officially Sports. I invited him because he's a sponsor with the PIAA and with the WPIAL. I invited the Officially Sports on because they pay the bills. So anyway, Dave, go ahead, man.
Great. Thank you very much, Nick. And thank you everyone for having me. I just wanted to first say thank you to all the officials, not just for all the years that you've been supporting us, but especially this last year and a half. It's been tough, but and also us. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for always continuing to support Officially Sports. And the only other thing I wanted to say for tonight was that if you need new uniforms, shirts, pants, hats, shirts and shoes, please do it as soon as you can. The supply chain has affected us as well. We do have plenty of pants and shirts in stock right now, but Smitty is running out of material on some things. So if you like that Body Flex style shirt, I recommend buying it sooner than later, and any other materials that you may need. But again, thank you so much for having me. Have a great meeting and a great year, and hopefully we'll see you at the store sometime this year. So thanks, Nick. Appreciate it, everybody. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, next in line, and again, the thought process is the way I would wanted to do this. We did this at football this fall. We had some people that some of you may not know or may know, but throughout the PIAA and the WPIAL. So our next speaker is the assistant executive director to the PIAA, Mr. Pat Gephardt.
Yeah, thanks, Nick, and thanks to the crew for allowing me to just make a couple comments. I'll echo what David said. Been the last, I guess, year and a half, 2 years have been tough, and I think many times the officials don't get the credit they deserve for the progress that we made over the last couple of years. So, on behalf of Dr. Lombardi and everyone in the office, just thanks so much for everything you've done. With regard to COVID, we do not have any guidelines like we had last winter sports season, where we had one captain at the coaches and captains meeting, those type of things. We're all going back to normal. And one thing I will say is that if an official wants to wear a mask or wants to wear gloves, feel free to do so if that makes you feel more comfortable. But it's not something that we're going to publish out of our office under any of the guidelines like we did last year. Talk briefly about the convention. If you're not aware, the convention opened today for winter sports. So for basketball, swimming, and diving and wrestling, those officials that are interested in attending the convention, it started today. Registration will continue through the end of the month until noon on the last day of this month. You can watch your sessions up until midnight, but we don't allow folks to register past noon. We were afraid that they couldn't get all their sessions in if they wanted to qualify for interdistrict playoffs. So for $50, you can attend the convention. If you want to qualify for interdistrict playoffs, you must watch 2 general sessions and 3 sports-specific sessions. If you're a fall sports official and you've already attended the convention for a fall sport, you only need to attend those sports-specific sessions. I'm talking to basketball officials now. So 3 basketball sessions, and you would qualify if you had already attended your general sessions. In addition to what David said, you will get for your $50, you'll get a $25 coupon to Officially Sports to use as you see fit. So for $25 is really all it's going to cost you to attend the convention. The final point I'd like to talk about is the supplemental disqualification. If you're not aware, last year, at the beginning of the school year, the board of directors decided to implement the supplemental disqualification. As we're all aware, within the basketball rule book, an ejection causes a 1 additional suspension, 1 game sit out if you get ejected from a contest. But with the supplemental disqualification, the board of directors decided to add an additional game to that 1 game sit out if you are ejected under the supplemental heading. In addition to that, the coach will have to take 2 educational classes through the NFHS, and the student athlete that would be ejected would have to take a sportsmanship class. So the one thing I would say, it's really for egregious conduct that's not handled by the rule book. Probably the most important thing the board did, in addition to adding the 1 additional game, is they extended the jurisdiction of officials only for the supplemental disqualification. So as we're all aware, the rule book says the officials have jurisdiction when they're in the visual confines of the court. So that meant once you hit the hallway and got in the locker room, if a coach was beating on the door, you really had no recourse against that coach. Well, now since the board has increased your jurisdiction to anywhere on campus, if a coach does that, you simply submit the supplemental disqualification. So it's pretty simple. Once you come on campus, until you leave campus, you have jurisdiction. So if you're even approached in the parking lot by a player or a coach, you can file the supplemental disqualification as a result of your interaction there. The one thing that the supplemental does not apply to, it does not apply to spectators. So we have to handle those in the same fashion we've done before, is you have to notify the athletic administration at the school you're at of what occurred and let them handle it from there. The one thing I will say, and we've had some problems with it in the fall, a fight is a supplemental disqualification because they're meaning the confrontation portion of the supplemental and probably the physical contact if the punch lands. So there'd be two criteria that a fight would qualify as a supplemental disqualification. So that's really all I have. Just thanks again to Nick and the crew for having me be part. I'll be on for a little bit, but I have to check out. So thanks again. I'll be in the office tomorrow. If anyone on this call has a question, feel free to ring me up there. I'll be happy to, if you want to ask it offline. So thanks again, Nick.
All right, thanks, Pat, for your time. One thing Pat didn't mention that I'll mention now, I wanted to see what he was going to cover. Your dues, PIAA dues messages did go out to you via the email that you have on the PIAA website. If you did not get a PIAA dues notification, then it was sent to an email. Like I said, it was sent to the email that is on the PIAA website. I would go in there and make sure that you have the correct email address, or if it was sent to a secondary email, then you need to go ahead and look at that email because that's where your dues excuse me. That's where your dues notification went. Okay. Our next speaker is the PIAA statewide rules interpreter for basketball. And I want to introduce Mr. David Wright from Clearfield, Pennsylvania. David, thank you for your time tonight, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Nick. I'm happy to be on the Zoom this evening. I just want to say thanks to everyone for being here. You're in excellent hands with the rules interpreters that you have in your district, and they make my job very easy. So just a quick thank you, and I really appreciate your time being here. And I'm at your disposal at any time if you have questions. Paul, Dan Robinson, all excellent resources and good interpreters that are on this call tonight. So thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dave. Our next speaker is the Assistant Executive Director of the WPIAL, former AD at Baldwin, Vince Sortino. Vince, it's all yours.
Thanks, Nick. I just wanted to give a shout out and thank you to everyone, especially for last year. We were able to get all of our tournaments in, and you guys did a great job in helping with that. This year, as Pat said, we have hopefully as normal as possible. We'll get back to our tournaments as far as letting fans in and back into our championship venues. So really on behalf of our board of directors and I thank Nick and Pam, you have just excellent officials, reps. They were in meetings all day as I was for hearings down at the WPIAL, and they're here on the Zoom tonight. So any questions you may have, you feel free to call our office, but your best contact is either Nick or Pam. I stay in contact with them all the time, and likewise with Pat at the PIAA. So thank you for everything that everyone does, and have a great season.
Thank you, Vince. Appreciate your time. Our next speaker is probably the most senior officials rep in the state of Pennsylvania. This lady I've known probably for a good 35 years. She's done an excellent job as the officials rep in Western Pennsylvania, Ms. Pam Cherubin.
Good evening, everyone. Good to be on board. And here we go with another season. As people have already stated, our presenters tonight are very well educated in this, and I look forward to hearing from them this evening, as always. And for this year, all of you, safe travels and a good, healthy year. And thanks a lot. Take care.
Thanks, Pam, for your time. Eddie, are you on? Eddie Moeller? Eddie Moeller.
Yeah, I'm on, Nick.
Okay, Eddie Moeller is our District 8 male officials rep. Eddie, the floor is yours now. Go ahead, please, sir.
Thanks, Nick. Just real quick, I don't want to take your time. You guys got a lot of things to go over tonight, but I want to thank all the officials for everything you do. I mean, we did have an officials appreciation week this year, and it was well deserved. For all of you to put your time and effort out week after week, day after day is very important to our student athletes. And I'm lucky to have the opportunity to work with Nick, Pam, and Katie as officials reps in our area to turn around and do things. And these guys are doing a great job as far as putting the stuff out and getting things to our officials to make things better. So we're here for you. If there's an issue that you need, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself, Nick, Pam, or Katie, and we'll be glad to do what we can to help you. Again, thanks and enjoy your meeting. I'm off to another meeting.
Thanks, Eddie. Talk to you later. Last but not least, Katie, are you on?
I am, Nick.
Okay, we have Katie Foley, the District 8 female representative, female officials rep. Katie, please, a few words.
I just wanted to say thank you for all that's taken the time to attend this meeting. I know Nick and everyone that helped him put this together will do a great job. And if you know anyone that missed this meeting, and make sure they sign up for the next one.
Okay, great. Thanks, Katie. We have a few assigners on. Lenny, do you care to say anything? Lenny Leeper is on. I saw that.
Thanks, Nick. No, nothing really. I just appreciate you guys putting this together. It's great for everybody. I think everybody could learn from it. I know from our end, we appreciate it, and we're just looking forward to having a season possibly without wearing masks.
Thanks, Lenny. Appreciate it. Sam, I saw you on. Sam Puglisi. Anything, Sam? Sam. Sam just must be getting on. All right. Any other assigners on that care to say anything, please? I didn't go through the whole list yet, but any other assigners, please identify yourself, and if you want to say anything, please do so. Bernie, are you there? No. Bernie. Ronnie Tyberski. Sam, I know. Okay. All right. So nobody's stepping forward. Okay. What we're going to do now is just a little bit of background. Dr. Young, Paul, and I, and Dan Robinson have probably been meeting since August to try to put together what we think is a very informative and very thorough and very complete three-man mechanics clinic. And the best way we thought we could do this is go and do it via Zoom, because everybody can stay at their home, all right, and watch what's happening. We are recording this, okay, but when we get done with the two-man session, or I shouldn't say two-man, two-person session, and the other three-person session, we will have this on YouTube, and I'll send those links out to every chapter so that they can use these as training sessions for their new people as they come in. So without further ado, the three people that I have tremendous thanks for and tremendous amount of work they've done is Dr. Felicia Young. She's a rules interpreter for the Pittsburgh Urban Chapter. She did a fantastic job. Dan Robinson is our District 8 rules interpreter, and Paul, District 8 Skirtis is our District 7 rules interpreter for basketball. So gentlemen and lady, the floor is all yours.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Make sure everybody can see that tonight is the three-person officiating, and the mechanics session of this is something that is totally intentional and willful, because it's not any of the three of us, my esteemed colleagues, Felicia, Dan, and myself, who can certify this. It's other people who have studied the game of basketball. And those other people have said, if we get an official in the right position at the right time, the vast majority of those calls, maybe 85%, will be correct. The flip side is also true. If we are not in the right position to make a call, our chances of getting a call right are less than 2 in 10, less than 15%. About 15% of the calls will be right. So we thought it would be good. This is Nick's idea from the start to try to have a mechanics clinic. And so you will hear the three of us. I'm going to start off, but luckily other people will talk to you and about different subject matter. So let's start. We already looked through the leadership. We do have an objective, and that objective is pretty simple. It's to make officiating uniform. The fundamentals of officiating, we would like to make uniform and obviously pursuant in accord with the standards set forth in the National Federation of High School Officiating Manual for all officials who are in 2 districts within southwestern Pennsylvania, District 7 and District 8 basketball officials. So please keep that in mind. That's the overarching objective of this session tonight. We have an aggressive agenda, so we'll try to get through it. We're going to go through the new rules changes. We're going to go through the new mechanic change. We're going to talk about crew communication throughout. First, before the date of the game at any level, what to do when you arrive on site, crew communication in a pregame conference at any level, your duties and positioning when you arrive on the floor, jump ball positioning. We're going to talk about rotations, obviously, which is specific to 3-person officiating. We're going to talk about throw-ins, which is one of the most frequent ways that we turn a dead ball live. The philosophy for determining fouls. Felicia is going to talk to you about what a philosophy should be and how you can keep it simple so that you can use it at all times. We're going to talk about, Dan Robinson is going to talk about reporting fouls and switching. Sometimes that's things that we don't do correctly. Administering free throws from a mechanics standpoint. Briefly, we're going to talk about communications with those people who are off the court, or should hopefully be off the court, the head coach, and then also controlling the bench at all times. One of the main duties that we have is always control. Finally, we're going to talk about communication again, this time in what I call the after prom, the post game. We're going to look at some official signals, or at least get you to where you can find them. So let's look at the rules change. And right off the bat, I want to tell you this session tonight and the 2 sessions to follow does not take the place of your chapter rules interpretation meeting, but we just wanted to talk about the rules changes and the mechanics changes as they have a part in mechanics pregame. New rule 214 next year, there'll be some states that could utilize the 35-second clock. We'll let the dignitaries on this program, on this session, discuss whether or not Pennsylvania is going to be one of those. There's a new rule in Rule 3, which is in substitutions and equipment, and that is religious head coverings are going to be permitted without any approval from the PIAA office, as long as those items, religious head coverings, meet the same standard that all items have to meet in Rule 3. They can't be dangerous, and they have to be securely fitted so they don't become dangerous. In the mechanics change, we eliminate a signal. It was signal 37, and that has to do with signaling the team control file. And all player and team control files will utilize signal 36. That's a big deal for us in a mechanics clinic. And that means realistically, we have to get out of our repertoire, if you will, that you don't fist punch for a team control foul. So that's the old signal of the fist pump, and it's no longer there. So let's talk about crew communication before the game. First couple of things, that these are suggestions. This is not black letter law. These are suggestions, but it gets you into the habit so that nobody misses a date and all the crew communicates. whether you like someone or don't like someone, whether you know someone or don't know someone, I highly recommend to incorporate this in your formula. Ensure the date, time, and site of the game is correct, especially right at the beginning of the season, and especially at schools that may have boosters who hold the tournaments and not even the athletic director. So I would always start with the home athletic director just to make sure that you have the right time. Make sure you contact both partners on the game. The phrase of closing the loop is adequate and accurate. It means that if you send a text or email or leave a voicemail message and don't hear from the other party, you have to choose another medium to get in contact. You can't just say when you're at the game, well, I called Paul Skirtich, he never called me back. If I don't call you back, you have to do whatever it takes to get in contact with me. And make sure when someone's trying to contact you that you are courteous and considerate and you promptly contact them. Pre-COVID-19, we always attempted to ride together, even if it's the last few miles to the gym. Under current COVID-19, it's up to everybody. But let each partner know of travel plans because that helps to take some of the anxiety out of the process. So what do you do when you get to the site? Well, for high school varsity games, it is suggested that an arrival time of 60 to 75 minutes before the opening tip is the best. Why? Well, number one, you relieve pressure off the athletic director or a game manager that you are there. Secondly, you will also relieve any kind of attention or anxiety or nervousness with your crew. If everybody arrives around the same time, you can go to your space and start getting ready for the game. Locate the home athletic director or the manager in control, inform them of your presence. At that point in time, we suggest, the three of us, discuss crowd control and the location of the athletic director right then. When you're getting there, it'll only take a few minutes. Where is the athletic director going to be? Do you have uniformed security? Is there anybody else helping the athletic director with crowd control? Where are the students going to be? Whatever those concerns are, it's good to get it out of the way and to make sure that you don't forget to do that. Go straight to the officials' dressing room. There's nothing but bad things that can happen to you if you stay in the gym. When you get to the dressing room, I think this is the most important thing you can do at any game, and that's especially with three-person games, and that is have a talk about the game. Have a pregame conference. Anybody who's been experienced as an official still needs to have a pregame conference because it could be the first game of that season that the three officials assigned to that game could be together. So why not take the guesswork out of it and talk about some subjects? Now, I'm warning you, and if anybody knows me, I'm warning you, I'm going to give you a lot of subjects. They may not always be the ones that you pick, but I'm going to give you subjects that you should touch upon if you can, because if it comes up in a game, you'll be ready for it. You'll be prepared. If you can, discuss the teams in a game. At the beginning of the season, that may be, you may have a football official on your crew or an official that says, hey, these two teams, they played a football game and there was somewhat of a disturbance. Something happened. That's good. Oh, this is a history. These teams were together in this classification. One team stayed in that classification and the other one dropped. So let's make sure this could be a good rivalry game. Anything like that will help. Discuss the new rule and the new mechanic. It'll take you seconds, but it's something to discuss. And always discuss this and maybe quote, don't quote me, I didn't coin this phrase, but you never know who may be in the stands watching. I can go through a war story with how I got into varsity ball, and it was somebody in the stands who I did not know saw me. It may happen to you. It may happen to you from one level to another. You don't know if coaches are scouting. just, you have to work every game, whether it's at the high school, junior high level, as if your assigner's watching you, as if Nick Murray's watching you, or Dave Wright, the state rules basketball interpreter for the entire Commonwealth, so that you are going to do your level best. Okay, here's some things I call crew mandatory in a pregame conference. The first thing that I call crew mandatory in a pregame conference is the first reason we're there. We got to get points right. That means if it's a 3-point field goal, make sure, and the ball goes in the hoop, make sure it's a 3-point field goal. If it looks like a 3-point field goal, but the right foot is on the arc, let's make sure that the points are a 2-point field goal. That's what we mean about getting points right. I think it's the first reason that people want to pay us, so that we're on the game. The second reason is get the time right. At the high school level, at the high school varsity level, 32 minutes should always be played. What do I mean by that? Please don't fail to overlook when a clock stops or fails to start. So we all, as a crew, and we'll talk about that in a second, but we have to ensure that 32 minutes is played. One of the crew must look at the score of the clock always. This is what I tell myself. It's what I've learned. Every time I cross a line, I look at the scoreboard. Every time I cross a line, I look at the clock. It gives me a baseline. And once you get into a habit of doing it, it just becomes automatic. Every time you cross a line, is the clock running? Should it have stopped? Did it fail to start? It just gives you a baseline. Next thing's crew mandatory is vision. Use the speed of light to your advantage. And the speed of light is best seen by visual. So find each other's eyes on the crew. Nothing bad can happen if before every dead ball and before it becomes live, you look at both crewmates' eyes. I say sweep outside and then to the table. Sweep outside and then to the table. A lot of officials, when they are the trail putting in a ball at the end line in the back court, will make eye contact with the lead at the opposite end. But they may fail to look at the C. And you never know when a C may be speaking with the coach, speaking with the timer, dealing with a player's equipment problem. Always find each other's eyes, because if you don't, catastrophe could happen. One of the big themes in basketball over the last few years is freedom of movement, so you got to discuss it. You really should. Discuss your primary coverage area, PCA. That's the definition in the manual. It's the area of responsibility for each official. It's determined by ball location. So the biggest thing with PCA is trust your partners. You got to have confidence to do this game. You have to have confidence in each of our abilities and talents, but you also have to have confidence in your partners, especially if they're new. Especially if they're new. This is not the time to lord experience over anybody. We are a crew, and a crew has to work together. So with primary coverage areas, we have to trust our partners to make calls when the ball is in their primary. The primary coverage area, we split the entire court, but at least in the pregame, you should talk about the initial FC in the front court. In the front court, we'll show you a diagram in a second, but you split the entire court and just talk about find the defense. Whoever is the primary is the person, the official who can see the basketball. On a curl play in the lane, that's in my primary as a lead, I have no chance to make that call. What am I seeing? The back of the player. So it has to be one of the outside officials, either the trail or the C, who can see the basketball and the torso of the offensive player and the defensive player. With the defense, you also have to have another thing to look at. It's an acronym, LGP, legal guarding position. Legal guarding position, real simple, 2 elements, 2 feet down in bounds, and the player, the defender's torso is facing the offensive player at some point initially. because that defensive player has freedom of movement, just like an offensive player does. Also talk about not bailing people out, another acronym, OIC, Offensive Initiated Contact. So you just want to talk about that as a crew, the pregame. You want to talk about your PCA, who is going to be primary responsibility for the ball. Determine always, when you look at the defense, if they're legal, and don't bail anybody out if there is offense initiated contact, especially if the defense hasn't done anything wrong. In transition, you need to talk about whose primary it is. And in press situations, you also need to talk about how you're going to adjust. So if you like maps and diagrams, bring one to the pregame. This is a magnet board that has both for 3-person and 2-person officiating. But in a 3-person, you can see the lead is the yellow colored primary. The trail has a large physical space, and the blue has 2/3 of the area to the opposite lane line. But really, that's a lot of that space may not be where the ball is a majority of the time. Usually the ball is going to be either on the outside of the 3-point arc, or it's going to be in the hot zone, the free throw lane. And you can see the C literally has a little bit less than 1/2 of the court, but especially has 1/2 of the free throw lane. So in a pregame, you should talk about how are you going to split up the court? Are you going to adhere to what is on this diagram, or are you going to modify it in some ways? We're not going to go through all the other diagrams, but you can talk about, look, the 2 outside guys, for the most part, have the shooter up and down. Talk to each other about closing down, because that's another term of art, closing down on a shot. That is, take 1 or 2 steps closer to the end line to put you in a better position in case the shot is missed and there's an offensive rebound, or to put you in a better position as made and there's an immediate press. Talk about 3-point shot coverage. And you can see in 3-point shot coverage, primary responsibility are the 2 outside officials, a trail and a center. And before we go to sleep and say, well, the lead doesn't have anything to do, that would be wrong. The lead always has secondary responsibility, especially on the strong side, on the side where a 3-point shot would be, and it would be the primary of the trail, the lead, especially in the deep corner. So if both the C and T have specific primary coverage, at the top of the key, that's the trail's primary. Talk about it in your pregame. Talk a little bit about shot and rebound coverage. Mainly the 2 outside guys have primary coverage, whether they're the trail or the center. So if we have the 2 outside officials, the center, she may have the weak side primary responsibility. The trail may have strong side primary responsibility, but just cover it, because you don't want to assume that each of you know who is looking at the ball in their primary. The primary shot and rebound coverage can be when the ball is weak side, strong side, or shot from the top of the arc. Talk about press coverage. These 2 diagrams talks about the C stays in the back court. The C would become the mirror of a trail with pressure in the back court. Take a look at this first diagram to the left. You have 6 players in the back court. The C should be exactly where she is. And the lead on the both diagrams should be deeper than the deepest position of players. And that may not be at the end line in the new front court. It could be at the division line. It could be at the free throw line extended. But it's just something to talk about. Okay, and one thing that Dan will talk about in a little bit, but memorize this diagram. It is in the manual. It's in both 2-person and 3-person. It is the correct throw-in spots. We call it's the upside down Darth Vader mask, if you will. But you can see that anything that's taken out of bounds outside of the striped area should go to the sideline. And anything that should be on the end line goes to outside of the free throw line. It's always good to make sure you get your throw-in site indicated right as soon as possible, and Dan will talk about that. All right, pre-game conference. So we talk about freedom of movement. That's the acronym FOM, freedom of movement for everybody, ball handlers and cutters. You can talk about a whistle. Who is the primary should have the initial whistle. A secondary whistle can happen if it's a play that needs to be called. I put in parentheses, there's 6 times under the Federation manual, our Bible, the officials manual. The new one just came out this year. They're $10 and they're good for 2 years. There's 6 times that we initiate a whistle, and only 6 times dead ball to live ball. That doesn't mean the foul, but there's 6 times, and you should study that and make sure you know the 6 times. One of those is beckoning a substitute into a PIAA sanctioned game. Talk about the duties of the outside official. You watch the shooters. We talked about 2-point baskets, the 3-point basket. If you're going to change, we have to talk about rebounding, screens, especially high screens, traveling in the post. That's a tough call for the lead. So either of the outside officials should be the person with primary coverage responsibility for traveling. But it's something to talk about. Talk about who's handling substitutes and when. What are you going to do if 2 whistles are sounded at the same time? And then finally, what are you going to do if you change a call? Hey, Paul, I'm coming in. You blew it. I'm just going to come to you. You're the person who called the boundary. I'm going to give you information, and you are the person who blew the whistle. You change it. Something to that effect, but at least you talked about it. Pre-game conference, I always like to call interventions. When the officials have to intervene, talk about when players are talking to each other. We can have preventative officiating if it's possible. If a player is using profanity to such a volume that fans, coaches, the entire table, that's something that we have to address under the rules and sanctions of basketball. If players are talking to one another that only the 2 of them hear, depending on what they are saying, that may be where you tell them to knock it off and you don't sanction them with a technical foul. When bodies are down, you need to talk about it. We have to intervene. When there's a body that crashes to the floor, we should have a whistle. In the post game, we can talk about whether the whistle's right or wrong, but we should have a whistle. When there are 2 bodies that collide after a crash and they go down, you have to have a whistle. I am far from perfect. So there's been games I've been in over the years when 2 bodies went down and we probably didn't have a whistle. And you just don't want to do that because the game could go south. You could lose control of the game immediately. So you want to talk about it in the pregame. And finally, you want to talk about coaches in the bench. The styles of the coaches. You have 2 fire-breathing dragons. But a lot of times we'll have one coach who's perfectly professional, quiet, sits, never stands, and then you have a fire-breathing dragon. And you want to talk about how you're going to deal with these 2 coaches so that one doesn't get an advantage over the other. If you have, if you have an intentional or technical foul, which is an intervention, the calling official and one other official should get together and discuss before the calling official goes to the table and gives information. It's a good way to do it. The third official should not be involved because they should be looking at all of the players, all of the benches. If necessary, in a very unusual situation, then you get the entire crew. The next The next slide is a diagram of what could happen. It's a dead ball officiating. In the first slide to your left, 21 in the dark uniform starts clapping. That's a taunt in the face of 40. Let's suppose we don't call this. The next thing you have, 40 throws a punch at 21. If we call 21 immediately when this is conduct, this is not words, this is conduct, there's zero tolerance, maybe we prevent any punch being thrown by 40. It's just an example to talk about how you're going to intervene and when you're going to intervene. And if you do call a technical foul, and since this is a mechanics clinic, here is a diagram for three-person officiating of what to do. The trail is the calling official on a technical foul in maybe 98% of the situation. If you call a technical foul on the coach and it's very hot, then even the Federation manual suggests that the trail can get out of this hornet's nest and go opposite and become the C. But if you have the lead and the C, the trail should be in close proximity and in visual contact with the remaining 9 players. So that so it does not escalate and simmer to a continued bad situation. And then finally, when the ball is taken in bounds, you can have the C come up. The throw-in is always going to be at the division line opposite the table. That's a mandatory under the manual. And the trail can, the new trail puts the ball in strong side. Obviously, the lead would swing over to double that side of the floor because all of the 10 players are in that area. And then you have the C who looks at any of the players like the 2 that are numbered as number 3s. They would be in the C's primary. So it's just a diagram. They're out there for you. Okay. Crew communication, pregame conference, always talk about end of half, the end of the game, the last 4 minutes. Some people and commentators may say it's the same as any other. I disagree personally. The last 4 minutes are the last 4 minutes. And if we make a mistake in the last 4 minutes, the last 2 minutes, even in the end of half or the end of the game especially, a team may not have enough time to overcome our mistake. So you just want to talk about, hey, let's be perfect. Let's be 100% sure throughout the game, but especially in the last 4 minutes. And then you get into last shot mechanics, and you should talk about last shot mechanics. And I have a Federation diagram that that Dan and I talked about, and I think Felicia would agree is incorrect, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. Last second shot in this diagram to the left, the Federation says trail has last second shot responsibility, even table side. Under practice and experience, in my humble opinion, I think Dan agrees, and I hope Felicia agrees, the outside official, the opposite outside official, the opposite official outside, whether that's the C, the center, or the trail, should always have last second responsibility because you're away from the table. You should be away from the scoreboard. You should have the best look at the scoreboard. If your gym has a scoreboard that is opposite the table, then maybe you could have the table side official call the last shot. I think in the years I've been around, Burrell High School had a scoreboard like that. I don't think they have that at the present time, but it's something where you have to modify. Okay, so you get on the floor finally. Why do we get on the floor? Well, we want to get there before both players or at least 15 minutes before the game. And so we can prevent anything from happening and also do our pregame duties. So that's the reasons why. That's the timing. And there is a diagram in the manual. It's 5-1. But when you get out on the floor, we're not there to do nothing. We're not out there to glad hand with people or fans in the stand. We have a job to do. So what are we to observe? All 3 of us, the number of players, the uniforms and the equipment. U1 looks at the home team. U2 looks at the away team. And the referee should look at both teams check out the uniforms. Who's wearing tights? Who's wearing arm sleeves? Do the colors match? Are undershirts the same length, especially early in the year? Are kids having rubber bands? Do they have pierced earrings? And the earrings are still in. Look at the equipment. And that's the best time to do it, because you can address it without a penalty. Pre-game positions, you can see on the diagram where the 3 officials are. The R should be at the division line, and U1 for the home team, and U2 for the visitors team, and you're away from the table. Okay. When do you go to the table? Well, the referee has ministerial duties. Those are what the manual in the rules book describe in detail. You have to go over and look at the timing device, and you have to look at the scorebook. So the first person you should get to is the official scorer. And I think we're going to try and do just a quick sample narrative. I'll start. I'll be the referee for purposes of expediency. So when I go over to the scorer, I always introduce myself, and I start this way. Nice to see you. I'm with Dan and Felicia tonight, and this is the time for the pregame meeting. I'd like to go over some things with you. This is the first game we worked together this year. I always use that because it's true. It's the first time that crew and that official scorer is there. There may be a visiting scorer. Please know that's terrific to have a visiting scorer. A visiting scorer is not recognized by the official rules manual, but it's good to have them. I would suggest to always put the 2 scorers together. There's a lot of coaches that would disagree with me, and they want their visiting scorer closest to their bench. If that's what they want to do, no problem. I also tell the coach or an assistant coach if there's any problems and errors that come up, the visiting scorer may not be able to help as much if they're together. So with the official scorer, I always start this way. The first thing I want you to do is make eye contact with the official if they call a foul or they blow a whistle and make a ball dead. Always make eye contact before you write anything down, before you do anything. And in fact, with some scorers, I will tell them, if we don't make eye contact, I'm going to stare at you until our eyes meet. Why do I do that? Why should we do that? It will lessen the chance for an error. That's the bottom line. It'll just make sure that the information that we communicate visually and verbally will be accurately recorded in that scorebook, which is the duty of that official scorer. I'll tell the official scorer to make sure that we have at least the same amount of names for a team as the amount of players that are warming up or sitting on the bench. I'll tell that official scorer that when we make eye contact, we'll let you know the color of the team that filed, and that the number of the filing party and what the consequence was, whether it's a ball out of bounds, if it's a common foul, or if we're going to shoot either 1, 2, or 3 free throws. I'll tell the official scorer to keep track of timeouts and always let us know when a team is out of timeouts. I'll tell the official scorer that if there's any problems with the book and scoring, wait to a dead ball if they can, tell the timer, and then to hit the horn. I'll tell the official scorer to make sure that you control the substitutes. Please keep them at the table until we can get them, beckon them onto the floor at the appropriate time. I ask the official scorer then if they have any questions of me. In the beginning of the season, I will say there's very few rules changes, not any really concerning your duties. But if you have any questions about rules or what you have to do, please ask me at the same time. Then I'll give the sample narrative to the official timer. And the first thing I'll ask the timer is if there is an official clock. I'll ask the timer if they have automatic recall in case we have a power outage, or more often what happens, somebody kicks the cord and the clock becomes unhinged, if you will. I'll ask the official timer to make sure that, that we have an audible signal, that every time there's a substitute, that he or she must sound that signal, that I need a horn. That's the only way I can control substitutes. I only need one horn for multiple substitutions, but I always need a horn. I'll tell the official timer, as I would have this score. If there's one touchdown signal, that's 3 points. If there's no touchdown signals, that's 2. If it's close and the official signals to you that it's a 2-point shot, that's what we're doing to try to help you out. I'll tell the score when a player has 5 fouls to signal to me. When a team has 7 fouls, to visually signal, and when a team has 10 fouls, to visually signal. And I'll tell the timer to help the score with those 3 pieces of information. And finally, I'll reiterate, help the score with substitutes. Substitutes are tough unless you have a very short scoring table. A lot of schools don't. They have a long table, or they have more than one table together. And after that, I'll ask the timer the same thing. Do you have any questions to ask me? And if there's any dispute at the end of the game, I'll tell a timer, please don't give us any information unless we come and ask for it. And that's in the Federation manual. Okay, so we get on the floor. We then get the sportsmanship message to the captains and the coaches. If the head coach is in the building that night, the head coach must be in the pregame meeting for the sportsmanship message. Now, there's a couple of things to point out about the sportsmanship message. The Federation suggests that the sportsmanship message be conducted well before tip time. If I remember correctly, it may be at the 10-minute mark. By practice in the WPIAL, which I am suggesting to follow, we get together around the 4-minute mark. And you can tell your captains that the U1 should tell the home captain, the U2 should tell the away captain that we're going to get together at the 4-minute mark. We need the captains, we need your head coach. If the head coach fails to come to the sportsmanship message, I would try once to get the head coach there by saying, if you fail to get there, the penalty is a direct technical foul on the head coach. And that's pregame. So that takes away the coaching box for the night. That's the first direct technical on the coach. I've never had a coach not come to a pregame sportsmanship message when I had to say that penalty to them. The next is position during introductions. As you heard from our leaders at the PIAA, we're going back to pre-COVID-19, but a word of caution, check with your athletic director, the home athletic director, when you are at the floor. If any of your partners are anxious about their position at the pregame introduction, which is by the scorers table, then by all means, just go across the floor. Just go across the floor and stay there until introductions, get the basketball and go into the jump ball. But right now, you could check when you get on, when you arrive at the site and see with the home athletic director if they have any peculiar or unique situations at that school. Jump ball positioning. Diagram is 5-2. You'll see it in a minute. Make sure there's 10. They should be the 10 starters designated in the book. The referee should know that well before the 10-minute mark because they should be so designated. And that's what happens when you're checking the book. Make sure the teams are facing the correct way. It happens, but you don't want to do it at least early in the year because it embarrasses the crew. The initial whistle in the game is the whistle by the referee before the toss, and practice the toss. Practice pregame, get under a basket and try to throw it up to 10 feet. It should be higher than either player can jump, and that's by the rule book. And we have a diagram for you after the introduction, before the tip-off. This is pre-COVID. You can see the referee, U1, U2, they run out, the referee would have the ball. U1 would go to the lower block of where the closest to the scorer's table, that's where the U1's going to be to chop in the initial time. U2 will go to the far block and the referee's across the floor. If one of your partners is anxious about doing this, standing by the table, then please relieve that anxiety and stand across. Okay, jump ball. U1 chops the clock and watches the jumper. The U2 watches the 8 non-jumpers for violation of the jump circle. This is not a rules meeting, so take a look at the rule book about jump balls and what a violation is. The U1 and U2 have to be mindful of a quick turnover, a change of possession, and then the referee obviously is the tosser. What happens if the ball goes right? The U2 is the lead, U1 is the C, and the referee is the trail. Diagram 5-3 in the officials manual. And if the ball goes left, U1 is the lead, U2 is the C, and the referee is the trail. So if the ball doesn't change hands, if the ball doesn't change possession, pardon me, the referees should end up as the trail. And these two diagrams should help you. Ball goes left, the referee becomes the trail. Ball goes right, referee backs out and becomes the trail. Okay, that's just a diagram for the jump ball. And the last slide, you can hold your applause for me, is the duties of the crew immediately after jump ball, because we can't turn our brain off just because we got the jump ball started and the game is going. Primarily, the referee has this responsibility, but really it's the entire crew. And it's very important that we get the initial arrow correct. So we're looking to see if the timer has the initial arrow in the correct direction. And a lot of times early in the year, they may not. So if they don't, then you have to get the initial arrow correctly, and you have to make sure that the clock is running. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Dan Robinson.
Good evening, everyone. Let me pull up my, okay, can everyone see that?
You gotta stop sharing, Paul. There you go. Now, Dan, you can share your screen.
All right, I just did. Can you see it?
Not yet. Redo it. Share your screen again.
All right, let me go back.
While you're doing that, Dan, Chris Walker, you had a question? Go ahead, Chris. Unmute.
No, that was a missed hand. My bad. Sorry about that.
Okay, all right.
All right, can you see my screen now?
Not yet.
Let me go back one more time.
All right, here we go. It's starting to share.
Okay.
Now we see
All
your
right.
email. Okay, there you go.
All right, great. It's not showing. Oh, that was Paul. Let me go back to mine. All right, here we are. Okay, hi everyone. This is Dan Robinson. It's a pleasure to be with you. It's a pleasure to be sharing this platform with Mr. Skirtich and Dr. Young. I will be talking to you about rotation, live ball rotation, live ball in the front court. I'll also be talking to you about putting the ball in play or the throw in. Felicia Young will come in and talk to you a bit about the foul philosophy, and I will come back and finish up with reporting fouls and switching. So rotation, we got some general provision from the officials manual. All right, first of all, rotation should be thoroughly discussed in the pregame, and Paul talked quite quite a bit about the pregame. And this is one of the things that should be talking about in the pregame is your rotation, simply because you don't know, you may have information about how these two teams play tonight, whether to be liberal in your rotation, if they have, say, a post player, or if they are swinging the ball, of course, across the court, and you may want to just go down to the closed down position and maybe not do a full rotation or be very patient on the rotation. So that's something you want to talk about in your pregame. Ball location is the key to rotate. All right, so you want to, when the ball is over on the weak side, which is the center official side, then you know that you're about to rotate. Only the lead will initiate the rotation. The lead will initiate the rotation. So when the lead actually rotation should only take place when all three of the officials has entered the front court. Rotation began when the lead moved laterally and crosses over the free throw line. And you have to look at players as you pass the lane. In the lane, there may be players, there may be action there. You still have primary responsibility for that lane area as you cross in the lane to complete your rotation. Rotation is not completed until the lead, as I just mentioned, passes beyond the 4-lane line extended area. The trail to new official. All right, when the ball swings to the center side and the lead begins to rotate, the other two officials, the trail official, close down in anticipation of that rotation. Move into the new center position to begin to observe the new primary coverage area, the weak side, while officiating the new primary coverage area. Okay, here's a diagram, when to rotate. We see here the ball is here at this moment. And this is the diagram to the left. You see the ball is over on the C primary area here. And as you look to the right, you see the lead should begin to go over. You also will see the lead is in the close down or the number 2 position at this moment. So the lead began to go over. You see the center official who will go up the trail, and you see the trail official who will come down to the center position. Lead goes to ball side, trail closed down, C completes the rotation. Now keep in mind, the C should be the last one to move. We can have 2 Cs, but we don't want to get caught with 2 trails. All right, this is a little interactive, so we'll see this go through. You see the lead is in the closed down position. The ball is moving over to the weak side. And the lead began their rotation. And the trail is moving down to the C position. And the center is moving back to the trail position. All right, that's typical of a standard rotation. Rotation during play here. There may be 2 centers, as I just mentioned, for a brief period, but should not be 2 trails. You should avoid having to do 2 trails. If a trap occurs along the near the division line on the center side, center can move towards that division line to officiate that play. The lead should initiate a rotation. If the lead does not initiate that rotation, the center should go back to the normal position when the play permits. Okay, here, this is rotation, center stays on ball. Okay, so we see the trail official is moving to the 2 position here. The ball is in the weak side area, which is the C area, the center area here. And they're moving over. The lead should be taking that 1 step or so down. And now the lead has moved over to and rotated over to C side. And C, the center official is moving back to the new trail position. But before the center moved back, the trail officials moved down to the new C position. Okay, so that's how that's done. Center initiate. Now, this is a situation where we see the ball is high near the division line. It's on center side. Center has to go up. A lot of things can happen in this area, over and back. We have fouls here on the offense or the defense. And so the center needs to go up to get a better angle of that play. So the center move up. See, now we may have two trails here temporarily. See, the center goes up into this trail position, and the trail beginning to move down. In this case, the lead chooses to move over, to rotate over to the strong side. So the lead official does move over in this particular case. Lead official, play in action may dictate no rotation. It could be a quick try for the basket, it could be a quick drive to the basket, or some immediate pass. So, but not to complete the rotation. So I'll show you, there is a diagram showing you that. We'll get there in a minute when we go back here. Even while moving across the lane, the lead again must officiate the player in the post. Keep your eyes there. Do not be looking over in the corner or picking up the ball and you haven't gotten across that last line. You have, while you still rotating, you still have responsibility of player in the post. Okay, here is the diagram of the lead official who was moving over. There was a shot here. So the lead official was moving, shot came up before they crossed this line. So the lead official moved back in position, ready to referee in a rebound action in that case. Okay, so there should be no movement by the trail coming down to the new C. The C holds their position. The C has this action here. All right, this transition covers after a rotation. This is critical. Normally, standardly, we will have, after we have completed rotation, we'll have the lead official moving down to the new trail. We will have the center official moving down to the new lead. And we have this new center official moving down to the center position in the other side. Now, what's critical about this, if one of those officials, the center official or the old trail official and this official here, fail to pick up the rotation, either one of them failed to pick up a rotation, and you have perhaps both of these officials moving down to the lead position, then you have this new lead coming down the court, usually the middle of the court, and then having a visual, using peripheral vision. One of these officials should recognize that we have two lead, and sometimes we may yell a name or two, and then they will pick that up. And then whoever becomes the lead, that new trail will go to that side. It happened occasionally. Other general position, always, this is for the throw in. This is putting the ball in play for throw ins here. You want to always indicate the jersey number and direction of the throw. The signal you want to use is a closed, all your fingers are closed together. Sometimes your thumb may be tucked inside your palm, but there should not be a point with an index finger for direction on throw-ins. Okay, so use that, make sure that the fingers are all touching. In the front court, the official responsible for the boundary line is the administering official. In the back court, the new trail is the administering official. So always in the backcourt, you're going to have the trail who will administer the throw-in. The administering official is the one who administers the throw-in. The ball is taken out of bounds at the appropriate spot. Now, Paul had given a diagram of the spot throw-in area. I think I have another one here too. The designated spot throw-in should be indicated by the calling official by pointing to the throw-in spot. So that could be a foul call or a violation. You always, the calling official, want to point to the throw-in spot. so that the administering official will know where the ball is going to be inbound. The administering official should always make eye contact with the partners. So before the ball is put in play or given to the thrower, eye contact be made with both of your partners. Everyone should make sure that we have the right amount of players on the court and we're ready to go. Now, you don't want to have a situation where as one of the official may be engaging with the table or engaging with the coach, and then the administrative official is putting the ball in play. You want to avoid that. When administering a throw in on the sideline, bounce pass is recommended. On the sideline, you should pretty much always do a bounce pass. Move back to be able to get angle, be able to see the thrower, and start your count. All right, here is the site of the throw-in spot. If that violation occurs, you see the lines here that's going horizontal. If the violation or foul occur in those areas where it's going horizontal, the throw-in spot would be along the end line, okay, from here up to the sideline, or from here to the sideline. If the ball is outside these horizontal line, any point outside the horizontal line, it should go on the side, near the area where the violation or foul occurred, okay? Also in the top of the key in this area here have a horizontal line. That ball also should go on the in line, usually on either side. Per PIAA, the ball, we hand the ball to the thrower in the front court. And Paul had mentioned about if you have anxiety about standing close enough to hand the ball to a thrower, then you may consider that to bounce the pass that's in the front court on that play. But we are pre-COVID, back to mechanics on pre-COVID. So in normal times, we will hand that ball to the thrower. If the thrower muff the handoff or bounce pass, throw should be re-administered. There's no penalty, just blow your whistle, hands up, and re-administer that throw in. The administrative official shall begin the 5-second count using the arm nearer to the thrower, nearer to the thrower. So if the thrower is to your right, you're going to use your right hand. If the thrower is to your left, use your left hand. That's when you begin. That's the arm you show your 5-second count. If there's a clock stop situation, the administrative official should signal the clock to start using the arm further away from the thrower when the ball is legally touched by the player. That's when we chop the clock. Okay, let me go to the other one. Okay. 1 second here. Okay, starting the period or quarter, a throw in to start the second, third, and fourth quarter shall be administered by the referee. We indicate the jersey color and direction. So it's blue, and you point to the direction of their basket for the designated throw-in spot. There's a division line opposite of the table. Sound the whistle and place the ball at the thrower's disposal. This is for inline throw-in, front court throw-in, inside the three-point line. It's inside the three-point line. The administrative official should be outside closer to the sideline of that if it's inside the three-point line. If the throw-in spot is outside the three-point line, the administrative official should be on the inside, closer to the basket. Again, per PIA, we're going to hand the ball in the front court for the front court throw-in. Designated throw-in spot on the in line shall be outside the throw-in, the free throw lane line extended. So we don't, We don't do a spot throw in under the basket. We want to be outside, either to the left or to the right of the lane line extended. We use signal 8 to indicate that the player can move along the line. This is after stoppage of play, such as a timeout. You can use signal 8, which is the kind of wave of the hand in front of your face to indicate they can run the line. And you can verbalize that to the players too. They may not know what that signal means, but you can verbalize with that player when they can or cannot run that line. Okay, this is another diagram on throw-in, administering official. We have the trail as the administering official bounces the ball to the thrower, and the inbounds the ball to see to number 1. On the middle one, we have trail opposite table, administering the throw-in. The right one is the lead administering the throw-in. And you see the lead comes over. We always double the line. We have the lead coming over to administer. That's the throw-in spot here. Lead comes over to administer that throw-in. And you see the C backs out, the center backs out to the trail position. The trail comes down to the C position. Now, when that throw-in is completed, we have the trail official who will mirror the chop clock. That will be so the table can see when to start the clock. Okay, this is again on throw-in. We see lead position, as I mentioned earlier. On the left one, we see the throw-in is within that 3-point line. So the administering official is outside, okay, is on the outside. If you look to the left, we see the lead position. The lead is on the inside. The ball throw-in is outside the 3-point area. So the lead takes a position inside. Okay, we have.
Dan?
Yes.
This is for Felicia, and I need to share the screen, please.
All right, I will stop sharing.
Okay.
Okay, I'll stop sharing.
Okay, hang on. Sorry, Felicia.
Here we go. How's everybody? We're going to be talking about the philosophy of calling a foul. But first, let us get some definitions down. The 2 I's, incidental versus illegal. So incidental contact. So as you can see, there's going to be contact. You have 10 players moving on the floor. They're going to contact each other. But now you have to decipher, is it going to be incidental or illegal? In Rule 427, you'll find a nice definition, something that you can say to the coach. Incidental contact, yes, but the opponents are able to what? Equally perform their offense and defensive movements. That's number 1. You can also say, yes, there's contact, but there was what? They did not hinder each other, the opponents, from performing their normal offensive and defensive movements. So first, before we get into foul philosophy, understand that definition, which is in Rule 4. Your definitions are always going to be in Rule 4. And then obviously illegal contact is an infraction of one of the rules. So now getting to the philosophy, think like the offense and referee the defense. You have to do both. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about here an example of think like the offense and referee the defense. How many have played basketball? And I'm sure most have. And the coach says, get in triple threat position, Felicia. right? Get in triple threat position. Next point, triple threat position is talking about I'm able to do 3 things with the ball. Pass, right? Dribble, and shoot. So let's use those 3, let's use this concept to understand the foul philosophy. Think like the offense and referee the defense. On a pass, I have the ball in my hand. Paul is guarding me. So if I am thinking like the offense, I know that I can do 3 things, right? That's thinking like the offense. Refereeing the defense is on a pass, what illegal action will Paul or can Paul do on a pass? He can, as I'm passing the ball maybe to Dan, he can hit my arm down, right? So you're anticipating in a sense. He can hit my arm down. That's a foul, right? It hit my arm illegally. So that's thinking like the offense, refereeing the defense. Let's move on to dribbling, right? I have the ball. I have dribbled legally. Paul is still guarding me. What can Paul do illegally? He can trip me up. He's affecting my what? My rhythm, my speed, my balance, and my quickness. Secondly, I'm still dribbling the ball. Paul can decide, you know what? I'm gonna try to establish and maintain legal guarding position. Block charge, right? That's on a dribble, right? And so those are the 2 things, pass and dribble, when we are talking about thinking like the offense, refereeing, and defense. Let's move on to the 3rd point. I have the ball in my hand. I can shoot the ball, right? So on the shot, when I go up and elevate over Paul, because it's easy to elevate over Paul, what? Illegally can contact my what? My elbow to my wrist. So that's where you're looking, elbow to wrist. Because if Paul hits me on my elbow or my wrist, that's a foul, right? So that's on the shot, right? So while I'm elevated, once I have elevated to my fullest, there's very little I can do, right? I can move my shoulders, but my lower body is very difficult. So you need to look at the lower body, because if I get contacted and my hips rotate, something happened there. Whether maybe the defender did it, maybe my teammate, something happened, right? So we talked about on that initial jump, elbow to wrist. We talked about watching the hips movement. What's the next thing I do? I have to come down because I'm an airborne shooter. An airborne shooter must go up and come down. So when I go up and come down, Paul cannot be in my landing space. I only need to what? Put 1 foot on the floor, right? And so that's the definition of airborne shooter. I go up, I come down. If Paul is in my landing space and I twist my ankle or I step on his foot, it's a foul on Paul, because the rule book clearly states that I have to go up and come down, right? And then what's the 4th thing? After I'm clearly back on the floor, no longer an airborne shooter, what's the last piece? Box out, block out. Paul backs me, he displaces me backwards. That potentially as well as a foul. So those are the 4 things when you're talking about think like the offense and referee the defense. So what I say is you want to take your shooter up and down, you pause, then you go rebound. Often what happens, we take our shooter up and then we go rebound because we're looking at the ball. But the ball is big, is orange. You can catch the ball in your periphery. Use all of your vision, use all of your peripheral vision. So you want to take that shooter up and down, then go rebound. Next slide. So we're going to talk a little bit about rhythm, speed, balance, and quickness. Where does that usually occur? That usually occurs above the free throw line. The guards are dribbling above the free throw line, right? I get tripped up. I talked about that when I was dribbling and Paul was guarding me. He trips me up. Or if I'm dribble drive to the basket, I get tripped up, right? Rhythm, speed, balance, quickness. So you look for those plays above the free throw line. Can they occur below? Of course. But generally those plays occur a lot above the free throw line. Next slide. Below the free throw line, you got time. You got the post players. You know, they got to figure out which move they're going to make. So you got time. You want to see that whole play. Start, develop, finish. You don't want to have any GI, which is called game interrupters, right? You got patience, you got time below the free throw line, but above the free throw line, there's no time. If you trip me up, it's a foul. You don't have to think about that. If you put hands on me, it's a foul. But below the free throw line, you have time to process that play. Start, develop, finish. Next point, you want to have a patient whistle, because there's nothing like an and one where you could have just had a patient whistle. Those are the worst, right? So you want to below the free throw line, start, develop, finish. Above the free throw line, you have a lot of your rhythm, speed, balance, quickness type plays. Next slide.
I think it's Dan on reporting fouls.
Let me pull that out. Let me share a screen. Let's see. Okay, Felicia, Dr. Young just spoke to us about the philosophy of calling the foul. We're going to go to reporting. I'm going to talk to you about reporting foul and switching. All right, reporting a foul. This is about by the ruling official who called the foul. To report the foul to the scorer, to the official score, before addressing any question from either coach. So you're approaching, you get into your foul reporting area. I think we have a diagram to show you that a little bit later on. You're in your area, you're communicating with the table, but you have a coach who wants to ask you a question. You do not respond to a coach or go to a coach until you actually have reported all that information to the table that you need to report. If the situation needs to be discussed with another official, do so before reporting to the table. If you have some question in your mind whether the basket was good or not, and you want to go to your partner before you go to the table. The ruling official informed the scorer by moving around players. That is, if the lead is coming from the lead position, don't walk through the block between players. Walk around players. If there's players in the foul reporting area, you don't want to walk between those players. You want to go around those players with a clear, unobstructed view to the official score. Do not go through players. Ruling official shall come to a complete. See that highlighted in blue? That's critical. We need to do that very consistent. Come to a complete stop before reporting to the table. Ruling official shall state the color of the jersey, blue, of the player who fouled. Ruling official shall visually indicate the number of the players who fouled. Okay, so it's a visual, and you also use a mechanic to indicate the number. So you're saying blue, but you're holding up the finger for the number as well, and verbalizing that. Foul reporting again. This is the foul reporting area. You see here. See these lines here, the horizontal line here that says foul reporting area. You may come any place within that area. You won't see this on the court, but you have to use your imagination. This area is the top of the key. It goes down maybe half along the 3-point line area, and it goes the same on the other reverse side. So you can go any place. There's no need to go this close here to the table. If you call a foul from a lead, you can walk around the table and you can come into this area right here and do your reporting. Two-hand signal. This is two-hand signal. The right hand shall show the tens digit, while the left hand shows the ones digit. Verbalize, again, verbalize 24 and not 2-4. Verbalize 24. Give the verbal and visual signal indicating the nature of the foul using the approved NFHS signal. And you see that 31 to 39, that page. If free throws are to be attempted, verbally and visually indicate the number of free throws. That's verbally and visually. 2 shot with showing 2 fingers. Complete all communication before granting any timeout or beckoning any subs. And that also applies to your partners too. So even though a coach may go to the non-ruling official requesting a timeout, no timeout should be granted until the ruling official has communicated all the information to the table. Here's the non-ruling officials. All right, it says freeze your vision, your field of vision. Freeze your field of vision to enable observing and keeping all players in view. Now, that does not mean you have to stand there and watch them. You can move towards your new position as you do a switch, but you want to make sure you move in such a way that you have all players in your vision. Both the non-ruling officials should have all the players in their vision. Anything can happen at this moment. This occurs while the ruling official is doing their report to the table. Provide information, if any, to the ruling official before the ruling official reports to the table. So if you have a situation whereas the ruling official you may not have seen something, you want to communicate with them, you want to do that before the ruling official make it to the table. Ignore the ball. This is non-ruling officials. Ignore the ball while the ball while the foul is being reported. Again, to the non-ruling official, you may go go to and verbally state the ball went in to the ruling official, as the ruling official has not signaled count the basket. If they have not signaled that, then one of the non-ruling official can go to the official to indicate that. But let the ruling official make the determination. You want to, the non-ruling official want to ensure the correct number of free throws, or the free thrower in this case. Again, this is switching. This is a situation where the lead calls foul, opposite table goes to reporting area, then become new C. So you see the lead calls the foul. We see the line going right through the post area, but if there's players there, again, you want to go around that post area and go to the reporting area and report that. And then in this case here, you're going to become the new C in this case. And of course, the trail official remains trail. Lead calls table side foul, goes to the reporting area, become the new trail. Trail become the new lead. C remains C in this case here. Okay, so lead calls, it's a table side foul call. And these two officials here, the trail and the lead, switches position. Here we have reporting here, we have table side center calls foul and no free throws. So table side center here on the left diagram calls the foul. There is no free throws. On the right diagram, you see the table side center reports and remains as trail. This is no free throws here, okay? You see the lead moves over to the new throw-in spot and the trail official moves down to the center position. Table side trail calls foul, no free throws again. This is table side trail here, calls a foul here, no free throws. If you look to the right, the table side trail simply report and stays trail. The throw-in spot is indicated by the trail. In this case, trail will administer the throw-in. Trail opposite calls foul, no free throw. Again, trail opposite table call foul here. Call fouls, no free throws. You notice they call that foul right in this area here. There could be a double whistle, or in some cases, perhaps even maybe a triple whistle. That's a different conversation. But he calls the foul. In the right diagram, he goes to report and stays trail official on table side here. And in this case, the flat throw in was placed here on the end line. So this lead official comes over to administer that throw in. Table side lead calls foul on offense, no free throws. Table side lead calls fouls on the offense, no free throws. This is like our long switch. So the table side lead comes, report, and goes down to lead the other way. Okay, so the old trail goes to administer the throw in, becomes the administering official, and will administer the throw in. The C will stay the C going down court. This is our traditional long switch. Here we have, this is back court to front court, no free throws. Back court to front court, no free throws. We have the lead official calls foul opposite, lead official calls foul opposite, report and moves to the front court to become the new C. So you have a lead calling the foul here and lead opposite calling foul, goes to report here and stays to C. Okay, so you have the trail moving down to lead position, and you have the OC come and become the new trail to administer that throw in. This is back court to front court again, no free throws. We have the trail calls foul opposite. Now pay close attention to this one. The trail calls a foul. Trail opposite here calls a foul. The trail reports the foul, and the trail goes down to new lead. Okay, does not go to C, goes down to new lead. And we have the old trail here going down to administer the throw in. I'm sorry, the lead coming here to administer throw in. The spot throw in is going to be here. So you have the lead coming to administer that throw in there. The C official stays as the C going down court. The key thing here, the trail who calls the foul opposite reports go to new lead. Again, we have a situation here. This is back court to front court, no free throws. We have the C official who is table side. The C official who is table side report and slides down to become the new lead. Okay, so you have a table side C calls a foul. Spot throw in is going to be here. Table side C comes to the foul reporting area, slide down to the new lead. We have the old lead who come and become the new trail to administer that free throw. The trail, the old trail becomes the new center. All right, this is our notified coach of disqualified player. Here we have a foul here called by the lead official. Lead official comes up to report and goes to the coach. So important to go to the coach, tells the coach of the disqualified player. So once that's done, then that player becomes a bench personnel. So once that information is communicated to the table from the table, and that's something during the pregame, a conversation to the official score, you want to find out how they're going to indicate the fifth foul on the player. So sometimes they hold up 5 fingers, sometimes they will tell you verbally, but when you get that information, your next step is to go to the head coach to indicate that that player is disqualified due to 5 fouls. If you remember back when Paul talked about hot situation, here in the diagram to the right, you see a lead calls the foul and reports the foul and was told that that was the 5th foul. So the lead goes to inform the center official who comes over to inform the coach. Okay, you got a hot situation, lead did not feel comfortable or didn't want to aggravate or to escalate a situation. So he let his partner or her partner goes to tell the coach in those cases.
Okay, Dan.
All right, this is Felicia.
Right, you need to stop
I'm
sharing.
gonna stop sharing. Okay, I'm good.
While Paul is pulling that up, as you can see, we're going to be talking about administering free throws. And it's a dead ball situation. So during dead ball, often we're relaxed. We don't want to relax. We want to always have heightened awareness during the dead ball situation. We can monitor stuff during live ball. It's during dead ball situations that things can get out of control. So with free throws, you want to always have a heightened awareness. You may be catching your breath, but you have to keep your eyes on the players, on the benches, to keep control over the situation. So administering free throws Here, there are two things we're going to talk about briefly. We're going to talk about positioning and responsibility in each of the three positions. Next point, first is the center. So where does the center, first of all, stand, right? They're going to be near the that lane line extended, and you're going to stand halfway between the near lane line and the sideline is the positioning of the center. And what's the responsibilities of the center? The center is going to have the thrower and will have the top two lane spaces, players that on the top two opposite lane spaces is the responsibility of the center, right? So the center is going to do what? They're going to have a non-verbal count. They're going to flick their wrist all the way up to 10, right? We're counting up to 10, right? We're going to, when the ball is released, we're going to step down. But one of the things we have to be mindful of, we do not need to follow the ball like a bobblehead. You know, I've done it, right? We can see the ball, right? We want to protect the thrower, always want to protect the thrower or someone who is shooting, right? So to make sure the opposite person doesn't back into, because that's an infraction. They changed that a few years ago. If you cross the free throw lane line, you know, it's an infraction. So be mindful of that. Be diligent with your area of responsibility. That ball, you'll be able to pick up the ball, right? It's the players that will always hurt you. The ball will never hurt you. So you want to get in a habit of definitely being mindful of the player. So that's the area of center positioning and responsibility. Briefly, you can always find this in your manual. Next slide, please. Now we're going to talk about the lead position. Lead, very important position. All of the positions are very important. Lead has the ball, right? They're going to be the ones that's going to bounce the ball to the thrower. And so when they do back out, it's going to be 4 inches from the nearer lane line, right? And you want to be off of the end line, because often when you're too close to the end line, you can miss a play. You ever try to put your hand in front of your face? You can't see anything. You can barely see your hand. So you want to make sure you give yourself enough space to be able to see things clearly, not just with free throws, but with other things that was previously discussed. So positioning of the lead, the responsibility of the lead. One of the responsibilities of the lead is when the trail finally completes reporting and turns and lets the lead know how many free throws it's going to be. It's going to be 1, is it going to be 2? The lead's responsibility is to mirror that. So if the trail says 2 shots, the lead should say 2 shots. What are we trying to prevent? As Paul said earlier, error. What type? Correctable error. You know, if we're mindful of that, we can prevent ourselves from actually having a correctable error. So if the trail, for example, puts up 1 finger and says 1 shot, and you know it's 2, you can go and say, hey, you know, are we shooting 2 shots? Did you mean 2 shots? Yes, 2 shots. So it's important for the lead to mirror that and say 2 shots. It's important for the lead to as well, make eye contact with the center, back with the trail, make sure there's nothing going on with the table, make sure there's not a sub or something at the table before you actually bounce the ball to the thrower, right? And once you bounce the ball to the thrower, here, this explains the 4 feet. Now, what's your responsibility as far as the players? You're going to have that first lane space near yourself if you are in the lead, and you're going to have all the opposite lane spaces. That's your area of responsibility. So we have to referee our third of the pie. Often we're officiating someone else's third, and then we miss something, right? So when I talked about the center, right? Did the center cross the line too early? You know, because we followed the ball. In the lead situation, do we miss a foul because we're following the ball? So referee your third. And then finally, the trail position. In the trail position, right? Generally at the 28-foot mark, obviously you're going to position adjust if there's players in front of you. You don't want to have the players back because you need to see, you know, all the other players, right? So you want to position adjust. So these are just like home spots, but you can always position adjust, readjust. So in the trail position, you're going to be approximately at the 28-foot mark. And next slide. and the responsibility of the trail. The trail is the one that called the foul generally, right? Unless something happened that the trail said, you know what, let me go opposite, the coach is yelling, whatever. But generally the trail is the person who has called the foul, right? The trail needs to complete their whole story. What happens sometimes in the trail, the coach, and we're going to get into this here shortly, the coach is talking to the trail. Do not let the coach distract you. You're going to report everything that you're supposed to report, finish with 2 shots, because your lead as well as the center, they're waiting for you. They're waiting for you to tell them how many shots. Now, they generally have an idea, but again, we're trying to prevent correctable errors. So when the trail turns and makes eye contact with the lead, 2 shots, now the lead can now say 2 shots. Now, if the trail is at the table and they're facing the table in their head, if Paul is in the lead, he sees the back of my head, right? And I'm talking to the table, and the table's trying to decide, is that, 5 fouls, whatever. And then Paul gets impatient and then throws the ball in. And then I turn and says, that's 5 fouls. Now the thrower has the ball in their hand. This is not the area that we need to speed up. The area that we speed up on is if Paul is in the lead position, he says, okay, players, get to your spots. We're shooting free throws. That's where we're going to increase pace of play, not when the trail is talking to the table and the lead is like, okay, let's hurry up and get this game. Let's get the game going here, right? You want to always make sure you make eye contact, communication through your eyes, the lead and the trail, right? Now, trail, make sure you're not talking to the coach. You could talk to the coach on the side, right? We're waiting for you. So obviously the trail is going to hold and beckon the subs in. They're going to observe the players in the back court, and they're going to assist. It says assist. It doesn't say the trail gets the first crack. It doesn't say the trail gets the primary whistle on C and leads violation. If they happen to miss it, they happen not to see it. If lead is too close and they didn't see the violation, right? It says assist. So your whistle, if you are in the trail, should not be first, should not be the primary whistle. Let the center and lead, blow that play first. If they miss it because they didn't see it, then you come with a secondary whistle. Next slide, please. And there's going to be some diagrams that show, as you can see, this is showing the center, the light shaded area, their responsibility. They have number 1, they have the ball, which is the thrower, they have the 2 and the 4, which is opposite them. And in the lead, the dark shaded area, they have number 4, which is in the yellow, and then they have all the other lane spaces opposite them. And trail has the players behind the 3-point line. Next slide. And this further illustrates, talking about trail, remember the players behind the 3-point line has the same they have to wait, just like the thrower. They have to wait till the ball hits the rim. So if you see a player that crosses that line, that's automatic violation, right? So just be mindful of that. If you have players that's clearly in the back court, you may have to go in the back court if it's a competitive matchup, right? And then sometimes you can turn, but you should let your partners know. No, usually I let my partners know to say, hey, I'm going into the back court, because in a sense, you're going to be officiating a 2-man here. If I go into the back court as a trail. Next slide. This again reiterates what I just said. It talks about the positioning, what the center has in their coverage, as well as the lead. As you can see, the lead has the red and the center has the lines. Next slide. And as you know, center and trail are going to close down on a shot. And why do you close down? Because you want to get closer to the play. You don't want to be on your back foot, because that means in the trail, you're about to transition. You're officiating a future play. We need you to officiate right now. So you close down so you're closer to the play. It reminds you. The next point we're going to go over is communication and control the bench as well as the coaches. Next points. The first point is concentration. We talked a little bit about this when I talked about free throws, right? If you call a foul, right, you're going table side. That's what the rule book tells us. We got to go table side. What happens is the coach may question the call. Felicia, why was that a foul? Right? You have to say, coach, let me finish reporting the foul. Why? Because you're going to forget your number. And your partners are waiting. We got to keep the pace of play going on here. You can always answer the coach. So make sure you report every single thing before you communicate with the coach regarding your call, right? Also, the coach may say timeout. Again, report everything. White, 21, hits, 2 shots. If it's a timeout, same thing. White, 21, hits, 2 shots. White, 5 is shooting. Coach, blue called timeout. And you're telling your partners, and Dan kind of went through that sequence already. So make sure you're concentrating. Do not let the coach distract you, because as well, your table official is waiting, your scorekeeper. Communication. Yes, we got to communicate with the coaches, right? But it can't be a long dissertation. It needs to be an elevator pitch. And you'll see here in a few slides coming up some of the things you can say. You want to use the rule book language, the definitions. That's where you get the rule book language. Felicia, why was that a foul? It affected the freedom of movement. That's the elevator pitch. It takes me 2 seconds to say that. It impeded progress. So you need to communicate with the coach, but we cannot have a long dissertation. If it's distracting, you have to give coach, I don't want to miss a play for your team, let alone the other team. You're questioning every call. You have to talk to the coach. It says communication, right? When we're talking about communication with the coaches. So make sure you're communicating, but it's not a long dissertation. Next point, consistency. You have to have consistency. Paul goes and says, coach, that's your warning. Dan comes and says, coach, that's your warning. I come and say, coach, that's your warning. That's not consistent, because the rule book clearly tells us if you call a warning, give a coach a warning, generally the next one is what? A technical foul. So it's just a foul. We got to call a technical foul. So it gives us what? Next point, credibility. We have to be consistent and have credibility. That gives us credibility. And finally is control. You have to control the entire bench. Sometimes the assistant on the bench. One day they're going to grow up to be head coaches. So we should be kind to everybody, but no one should disrespect us, right? And sometimes if the assistant is acting and disrespectful and passionate, a little bit too passionate, you have to talk to the head coach. Coach, please help me, right? You have to control that whole environment. So we have concentration, communication, consistency, credibility, and control when we're talking about the coach and bench decorum. Next slide, please. Signals, here, we have something fun. I hope you guys are close to the chat. How many, let's put it in the chat. I wanna see the number, I'm gonna pull it up. How many foul signals are listed in the rule book as well as the manual? I'm about to pull up the chat. Let's see. Put some numbers up in there. I'm gonna wait. We can just be here all night. No one has to go to work. Let's put some numbers up in there. I don't see any numbers. How many foul signals are listed? We got 39. Mr. Wright, okay. Foul signals. Who else is gonna guess? We got 41, we got 35. Thank you guys for participating. I love participation. I get excited. Anybody knows that. So how many foul signals are listed? The foul signals only are listed in the rule book. It's going to be, next slide. Let's count them. We're going to name them. Now name them. Go back, please. Name them. So we listed how many, now name them. If you name them, you'll be able to figure out what's the foul signals that you report generally when you go to the table. Who can name some? It's kind of quiet. I don't see anything in the chat. We guess we'll be here all day. Sorry, Mr. Nick, we're gonna be here all day because I don't see anybody. We got a block. Here we go. There we go. We got walking. We got hand check, charge, illegal use of hands, holding. Thank you so much for participating. So the answer to the first question was 9. And now let's name them. You know them, right? Here we go. Someone said it. Thank you so much. These two deals with hands, right? Illegal use of hands. Hand check, right? These hand check usually occurred above the free throw line generally. Then illegal use of the hands. Sometimes people say hit is really what they're saying. So those are 2 signals. Next slide. The next 2 here, we have holding. Again, the reason why I put this, you get a chance to extract information. I go and report a hold, and the coach says, why was it a hold? Now I'm just going to define it for him and say, you know, affected the player's freedom of movement. Why was it a block? I'm just going to extract the information and said it impeded the progress, right? So these are 2 others. So that's 4. Next slide. We have charging and pushing, right? And we're moving into the opponent's torso. Those are the same signals, charging and pushing. And then we have the player and team control. Paul talked about, we combined this year, behind the head, player and team control. So the prior slides, you know, plus these 2 slides, prior slides, we call more often. Next slide, then these last 2 slides here. Double foul, how many double fouls have you called? I know I haven't called it some in a long time, right? Next slide. And you know, these are the definition. Technical fouls, don't have too many technical fouls. So these 3, we don't call a lot, right? And I said, how many fouls? So it's a total of, right, 9 this year because we combined 1. And so intentional foul, you know, double fouls, technical fouls, and intentional, we don't call very much. And as you can see here, intentional foul is not premeditated. It's not solely based on the severity of that. Next slide, please. Now, this was how many NFHS signals are there? You know, someone answered this question. You know, one way to remember how many fouls were there? I said 9, you said 9. The other thing is what's the maximum number of officials that can referee a game? 3. So if you put that together, that's 39, right? So how many NFHS signals are there? 39, there was 40, but remember they combined the 2. Next slide.
This is just an example of some.
This is some examples of some. You got the stop, these are stop clock, hell ball. Next slide, thanks, Paul. We have, this is the bird dog. We'll talk about that here shortly. Stop the clock and foul. We want to always stop the clock. Directional, this was slide 6 is talking what Dan had said. When you're pointing your direction, tuck your thumb in, designated spot. And this is the throw in, slide number 8 that Dan talked about. Next slide. Okay, now we're going to get to the video. We're going to get to a video. And first of all, I want to thank those who are in a video. You know, I don't even know who's in the video. And Theodore Roosevelt said it best. It is not the critic who counts, right? The credit belongs to the man or woman who's actually in the arena. So those individuals that are actually in the arena, the credit belongs to you. So we're not here to criticize you. We're here to learn. And so I thank you. I applaud you. Thank you for allowing each one of us to grow. So if you see yourself in a video, it's only to make all of us better. So I thank you in advance. Okay, Paul, I think I'm going to share my slide here. Let's see.
While Felicia's sharing, there's been a couple of chat things. We notify the coach first, and then the player on 5 fouls. Because why we want to know the coach first is then he becomes, and then the player becomes a bench personnel, and it's on the coach if something is done. All right, and then there was something about Donnie Consul wrote, when you report the foul to the table, look for the guy or lady in the striped shirt. All right, don't look to somebody, you know, the timer, another score, you know, whatever. Look for the person in the striped shirt. All right, that was 2 things in chat. Go ahead, Felicia.
Okay, can everybody see my slide, please? Can you see my slide?
Yes, yeah. I can.
Okay, so like I said, we're going to go through this, and you know, this can take like a whole week to really break down a video, right? So it's just going to be small tidbits. These are the points I'm going to cover. I'm going to cover a little bit of court coverage, the calling official, probably highlight that, and I'm going to reiterate what Mr. Nick said about the person who has something looking at the score. That's on this particular slide here. So we're going to talk about court coverage, the calling official, partners, coaches, and finally free throws very briefly. So the first thing here, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like there was what? A steal, blue gets the ball, right? Blue gets the ball. So we have to what? Sprint, the lead, which is, I believe, opposite the table, right? Has to lead the play. So they have to attempt to get in front of the play. Sometimes we're successful at getting in front and sometimes not. It happens, right? But we at least have to make an attempt. So as you can see, a little still here, and I sprint down the floor. And so one of the things you're going to notice when I actually go through a video, I put myself in a video, because often when I say he or she, then my brain separates and says, okay, that wasn't me. Oh yeah, I don't have to worry about that. But when I put myself in the video, it allows me to personally focus. So I am going to be the calling official, the lead. I'm going to put Paul is in the center and Dan will be in the trail position, okay? So we had a transition play, right? So as the lead, I'm supposed to get ahead of this play, right? Some plays are going to just beat us down the floor because the ball can always move faster than us, right? So I sprint down the floor. I had some nice jets, as you can see here. You watch here, nice jets, right? Right? So we're going to briefly talk about the first point, court coverage, right? So court coverage on this play, right? Once I get to the end line, is going to be between what? The lead and the center, right? Because Dan is still in the backcourt. So technically we are actually officiating what? A two-man almost. We are in a two-man situation, right? And we're moving, your eyes are moving. So you have to really make sure you're seeing between plays. When your eyes are moving, sometimes it's challenging to see plays because you're moving and the players are moving. So in this particular play, court coverage rise, the calling official probably should be me on the play as the lead, right? I probably should be the calling official on this play. Paul is there to assist and help if I don't call, right? So the point of this clip is not so much to go over all the minute details. It's really for training purposes, right? So we talked about court coverage. The next thing we're going to talk about, and that was just very brief because we want to make sure the lead is in good position. As you notice, they kind of slowed down because they needed to see between the players. But generally, we're supposed to get ahead of the play. But sometimes you slow down so you can see between the players because you need to see the hands, right? You need to see the hands to be able to see if some sort of foul is going to, if some sort of illegal action is going to occur here. So in this particular play, as you can see here, for our court coverage here, I hustled down the floor here, boom, right, boom. So we talked about court coverage. We're not talking about if it's a foul or anything like that. Remember, this is teaching. We're talking about the manual, right? So briefly, we're in a two-man. This is between me and Paul. Dan is there to assist. He should be hustling up the floor too as well. Now, let's do point number 2, the calling official. I am the calling official, as I said. I'm going to run it, and then I'm going to reverse it here. So you can run it, and then I'm going to play it again, okay? So the calling official. Dan went through what we're supposed to do as the calling official. So let's look at it. I call a foul. I'm not going to say much. Let's just watch it here. Okay, so now let's back that up. Now we're going to go frame by frame. And this is how you break down your tape in a sense, right? Just because you got the play right, was it your play to get? Were you supposed to have the first crack at it? Okay, so boom, I call a foul. How's my hand? Is it up good? Is it posted up to the sky? We're not talking about, okay, there's a foul on the floor. Generally in this scenario, if I'm the lead, I would probably, rush over a little bit because I want to make sure to de-escalate the situation. When we're here, I'm just talking about the calling official, okay? So did I post? Yes, I posted a foul. What does the rule book say next that I can do, right? I can do a bird dog. There was an example of a bird dog where you're pointing to the waist of the person who committed the infraction, right? If you don't bird dog, generally you say, okay, the foul's on white 3. You're right, white 3. So remember, we're only doing the calling official. I'm not talking about the center just yet, just me in the lead, right? What I'm supposed to do. So I post my foul up nice to the sky, punching through the ceiling. I then say white 3, letting people, what did white 3 do? You have to give a preliminary at the spot. And we showed some of the signals. There's only 9 fouls, right? Was it a hit or illegal use of the hand? Was it a hold? Was it a block? You do that at the spot of the foul, right? So let's just see, did I do that at the spot? Serious? Come on. Okay, so I didn't do it at the spot, but remember this play may be a little unusual, but just make sure you're doing your preliminary at the spot. Why? Because they told us to do it. So we got to do what they tell us to do. And the rule book tells us to do it. The manual tells us to do it. So we give the preliminary at the spot. Then what's next? The next is what? To run around the players. Here, what happened? I ran through the players. I'm supposed to run around the players and get where? We're going to get into that reporting area that Dan talked about, which is, if you can remember, just the top of the semi free throw circle here, just the tip, which is what? Which is also a what? A 3-point shot. So if I can just cast my eyes as I'm running and get here, I'm probably going to be in that reporting area, right? So the first thing I did was I ran through the players. You want to run with a purpose, with your head up, confident as you're moving over to the table to get to this reporting area, okay? Let's move on. Now, this is the thing. I grab the ball, right? We don't need to grab the ball every single time. Sometimes the ball comes at us. It's natural. As humans, something's coming at you to grab the ball, right? And then you just give it to your partners. And as partners, and we'll talk about that, help out the calling official, because the calling official is trying to get to the table, not forget their number. Now all of a sudden they have a ball in their hand. So help them out and say, hey, I got the ball. Run up to them or let them know you'll take the ball, right? But in most scenarios, we don't want to be distracted by the ball. We don't want to be distracted by the ball, right? We don't need to grab the ball. Our job here, I'm supposed to get to my reporting area and get ready to make communication with the table. They're called table officials, specifically the scorer, okay? Next point. So he does throw it to the partner. Okay, so this is what assigners and Mr. Nick is talking about. As you see, I am walking and talking, right? So in this scenario, once we get to that reporting area, we must stop completely. Make eye contact with the scorekeeper. Generally, they're wearing a shirt like us. They need to make eye contact with us before we begin our presentation, which Dan went through, right? If they don't make eye contact, you wait, or you get their attention and make sure they make eye contact with you. Because although they're very good and they say, okay, yeah, I'm gonna get that foul on 4, but really the foul was on 3, right? But they need to make eye contact. The table official, the scorekeeper, make eye contact. And you're gonna report your foul with a nice cadence, using your voice, elevating your voice. White, 21 hits, 2 shots. Have a cadence, a pace to how you're reporting your foul. You definitely do not want to walk and talk, because the other thing is you're walking and talking. You're like, okay, I called the foul. Woo, I'm over here. You turn, and then the timer, the scorer, honk, honk, honk. Who was the foul on? It's because you were moving. And if you're moving, it's tough for the scorekeeper as well to see your numbers. Dan went through that already, right? 21, you want them to actually see that. So you don't want to walk and talk. You want to stop completely, then perform your duties, right? 2 shots. This right here, he says 2 shots, or I say 2 shots. Right here, often, sometimes, and remember, this is like an unusual situation because we have a player on the floor, but sometimes what happens, this is what I had mentioned before. I'm here, I'm talking to the table. Paul is down here in the lead. He has the players lined up, right? And Paul's like, okay, we're ready. And the table, the scorekeeper is trying to count. And then I'm waiting, and she's like, that's 5 fouls. Paul has already given the thrower. Now we have to grab the ball back. Right? We always want to look smooth and sharp whenever we can, right? We don't need to increase pace of play there. Where we need to increase pace of play is right here. Players, Paul saying, players, get to your spots. White, here, line up. You're on the bottom. Come on, blue, let's line up. Now they're ready. So after I present and say 2 shots, now I turn and I tell my partner 2 shot. Now Paul can say 2 shot. Now the center can say 2 shots because we're now going to prevent a correctable error, right? So that's that scenario. So that was the calling official. There's a lot there, and I wanted to go through that. So now let's talk briefly about our partners, about my partners. Okay. Remember, this is an unusual situation. Generally, I probably would move closer to the play. The player's on the floor. Okay, so we have a player that goes down, right? I pretend I moved closer to the play. I was pretty close. Paul comes down, right? He has a nice trot down because he realized there's a player on the floor, right? He runs in there, right? Right? And so one of the reasons Paul can run in there, granted there's a player on the floor, de-escalate the situation. This lets me know that now I can release and go and report, right? I'm not leaving until I see one of my partners or until my partner says, Felicia, I'm here. And that lets me know, go and report, right? So here we go. Paul is there. Paul's standing there. So we have, what's the verbiage? Beckon the coach onto the floor. The athletic, trainer comes onto the floor. Paul is standing here. We don't need Paul to stand here, right? What we need to now do is control this environment. There's a player on the floor. And one way to control the environment is to say, white, stand by your bench. Blue, stand by your bench. Because what happens here, just very briefly, this action between this player and this player, they touch each other. White thinks he did it intentionally. Blue thinks, and then you got a pushing match. The next thing you have to fight. But if you tell them to get to their benches, now you can control the environment a little bit better. There's no reason Paul needs to still stand here because the athletic trainer is on the floor. Let's get away. We don't want to accidentally touch the players. Now they're saying that we touched the players. Get away. There's someone on the floor that's attending to the player. So we don't need to be right here, right? Let's get away. And while we beckon the coach onto the floor to attend to his players, we need to watch both benches, make sure someone doesn't come off the bench because the players are going to protect their teammates. They're like, oh yeah, they did that on purpose. And next thing you know, they're on the floor. You need to manage that. Make sure there's not a sub at the table. But if we're all standing down here with this injured player, nobody's making sure there's a sub. Sometimes there's no horn. Next thing you know, the sub's on the floor, right? So we need to manage that. We need to watch both benches. So one way to manage this is say, white, get to your bench. Blue, get to your bench. Dan is still here in the back court. He probably should have had a little trot into the front court. Why? This player's on the floor. And we need to show our presence. White, nice job. Let's move. Get to your bench, please. Right? So they know we're there. So blue knows we're there. But as you can see here, Paul, here's Dan. He's watching, he's looking. He probably could have had a little more of a trot, because these players are all close to each other. A player went to the floor. And we need to make sure we're going to adjudicate and resume play the right way. The coach came onto the floor. Right? So now we're dealing with coaches. We beckon the coach onto the floor. They attended to the player, right? So we need to make sure now we're going to adjudicate everything properly. If the coach comes onto the floor, who's shooting the free throws? If we're, is there a sub at the table? There should be a sub for this particular player who went to the floor, right? If a sub is at the table, generally I say, are you in for whoever went, number 3, who was on the floor? Whoever was on the floor, I said, are you in for the injured player? To make sure, because technically we have a 4-on-5 because that injured player has to go out the game unless there's a timeout. So so you need to make sure that the sub is in for the injured player, then you can get other subs into the game, but make sure that happens. So as you can see here, the ball is right here. I thought that Paul was going to be ready for the ball, but he wasn't. Now the ball's on the floor. Somebody could step on the ball, right? So if we help and say, hey, give me the ball, now we're holding on to the ball. And the last piece that I wanted to discuss briefly was the free throws. As we see here, we have the injured player. So here, injured player or positioning. Here's the center, maybe too far off here. He's almost out of bounds, right? He needs to be able to see the thrower, the ball, and the opposite lane spaces here, the two, right? And then you have your lead, which is going to go over here, going to have these two players here, plus if the player, this player here. And then the trail is going to have all the players in the backcourt, right? So let's just see what happens. Okay, so that was the end of the clip, okay? So yeah, so that was the points I wanted to go over. We went over calling official, we went over court coverage, calling official, partners. We went over coaches briefly, and finally free throws. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, Paul, so we can pull up our next piece.
Not much longer, people. Just stay with us.
Right, we're almost there. Okay, so, yeah. Now, we should always have a post game. Go back, please. We should always have a post game, right? So we're gonna briefly go through a post game here, us three, me, Paul, and Dan. You know, that was a great game. You know, Alaska, they scored 98 points. Hawaii scored 100. What a game, right? Paul and Dan, is there any play that you would like to maybe, you know, take back that you wish you didn't call? We'll start with you, Paul. Is there a play maybe you wish you didn't call? Can you think of anything in our post-game discussion here?
Yeah, I remember there was a call, a foul. There wasn't a real disadvantage on the player. And really what I did is interrupt the flow of the game there. I stopped the white team from getting into a fast break situation. I shouldn't have done that.
How about you, Dan? Can you think of anything that you wish you could have done? You know, maybe take back a call or anything?
Yeah, now that I see your video, I think I really would have hustled more up court to get position during that body to the floor play.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, I think overall, I think the play that just stands out, that particular play, you know, let me just ask you two in this post-game discussion, did any of you like an intentional foul ever cross your mind that we should have called an intentional foul on that particular play? I mean, the player went to the floor. How about you, Dan? You start out. Do you think it may be an intentional foul? Did that cross your mind?
It could have been considered, but I didn't see enough from my position, see enough of contact to the body to call intentional or hard foul or excessive contact foul.
Yeah, I was in a better position. I was in a better position to come and give you more information, Felicia. And I should have done that. I should have come in and said, what about an intentional foul in that play? Before you report, I should have given you information. The two of us should have talked about it before you go and report the foul. And we could have made a decision whether or not there was an intentional foul there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, at the time, I just didn't deem it intentional. Yes, it wasn't excessive, unnecessary. There's a play on the ball. You know, if I go with all the points, the 6 points is in the rule book. You know, I mean, granted, the player went to the floor. I really would like to see that play. And I would like to see how we handled that total situation. You know, did we get the players to the benches? You know, did we make sure the right shooter was shooting? You know, did we let a sub onto the floor? I mean, at the time, it appeared as though we adjudicated properly, but that's a play I really would like to see. You know, as far as the rest of the game, I thought we did well with calling the hands and, you know, guard play. Post play, we had some situations, you know, in post play, but I really like the fact that we matched calls. We were consistent on calls. We didn't really have any 3 seconds or even, I can't even remember an illegal swing that we called. We did very well on rebounding. We protected our shooters. So yeah, is there anything else that you guys would like for me to put in the game report? Besides those two, besides that?
No, I think those are the two big points. And I think the play where the kid went down is what one of the coaches may talk to our assigner about. So I think we should alert the assigner and maybe we can see a clip of the play and have a good conversation later.
Right. Dan, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you brought out the good points. The major thing that happened was the players to the floor on that fairly physical contact foul So I think we could have, just discussed that, whether that could have been intentional or not. But otherwise, I thought we're good.
Right, right. So we just basically, ladies and gentlemen, did like brief post game, and these are just some of the points. I asked about under calls, was there a call that you wanted to take back? Application of the rule, make sure you didn't miss a rule. You can look it up now that you're in the locker room. And then you always want to have communication, accuracy, consistency, the dynamics. When you feel as though you just don't fit in, sometimes that happens. You want to stick to the basics. Make sure you're calling in your primary, don't reach out. And then court covers, rotation, players, bench decorum. These are just some examples. And then the unusual situation would be that intentional foul. Why? Because we don't have an intentional foul every single game, once in a blue moon, so that's why I would list that as an unusual situation. And now we may have an observer to come in and give us some comments. And then when we complete our written report, make sure it reflects what we're talking about. I don't want to put in a report like, yeah, Dan didn't do this and Paul didn't do that, and we didn't talk about it, right? That report should reflect this post-game conference. So I thank you for the opportunity. Do we have any questions? Now we're at the stage of questions. We'll give the floor back to our fierce leader, Mr. Nick.
Hey, again, thank you all for attending. I know it went a little bit long, but this is something we haven't done in years. We wanted to, when we got together and we started to discuss this, we wanted to develop it to be all inclusive. To those the veterans that know what to do, you might have learned something tonight. Hopefully you did. To those newbies getting into three person, we wanted to make sure that we were all inclusive. So we wanted to make sure everything was covered that we needed to cover. The other thing is, like I said, I don't remember the last time we did this. I could think maybe 20 years back, 30 years back. I mean, I've been officiating 32 years. I haven't been on the floor for like 5, but can't remember the last time we did this. It's something I thought we needed to do. So I applaud you guys for staying on, you ladies and gentlemen for staying on. If there's anything that you need to discuss or would like us to know, please send it to me and I'll pass on to Felicia, Dr. Young, Dan, and Paul. More importantly, I'd like to thank very much Dan, Paul, and Dr. Young. They put in a lot of work for this. They did a lot of work for this. The two-person mechanic meeting is Wednesday. This same session will be repeated on Sunday from 8 to 10. Hopefully we could cut some time out of it on Sunday. But basically, again, thank you for staying on. Thank you for listening. Hopefully you learned something. And hopefully we'll see you guys down here. So again, thank you for staying on. The meeting's over. Just I have one personal thing here. It is an election year. I do have an opponent. Would support any vote that you guys can give me would be great. I think I've been able to reach out to most of you all. So anything that you want to tell me or send to me, please do so at NKKMOREA. That's NKKMOREA@AOL.com. Again, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Paul, and thank you for Dr. Young for the work. And yes, we are, Chad. Thank you for all the work. And again, that concludes our session for tonight. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks very much.